Business owners deal with effects of the virus. Many have questions about their insurance coverage. Sheba Turk is working from home this week, and she sat down with Kristin Swanson from Swanson Insurance. They bring us more on what business owners can expect.
Businesses have been some of the hardest hit by the coronavirus pandemic. So we wanted to talk about what businesses with insurance policies can expect during this crisis. Kristin Swanson of Swanson Insurance is joining us more to talk about that. Hi, Kristin.
Hi, Sheba. Thank you so much for having us and here to talk about this really important topic. So lately, a lot of our clients have been coming to us with questions about business interruption coverage, which is usually on their business owner's property policies. And many of them are just finding out that on a standard business owner's property policy, viruses are specifically excluded from that policy. So many of them are wondering, well, what actually does trigger this business interruption coverage? And it would be a direct physical loss to the building that would trigger that coverage. So, and many of them are wondering, well, what can I do right now since I don't have a stream of revenue coming in? Well, the State Department of Insurance and Commissioner Donelan have issued Emergency Rule 40, which does prevent the companies and carriers from issuing cancellations at this time, but this does not remove the obligation for policyholders to pay their premium.
So what about businesses that have changed how they're operating? If they were a restaurant that you could walk into and now they're doing takeout and delivery, does that impact their policy?
So yes, it does. So those restaurants that have converted to delivery, that are using their employees' vehicles to make these deliveries, they need to check with their insurance agents and with their policies to see if they have what's called hired and non-owned coverage, which would then cover their employees secondary to their primary insurance in the event that they were to get into an accident or anything in the course of delivery.
And you guys, of course, work with clients who have business. Tell us more about what they're calling and asking you and concerned about.
Well, they're really calling and asking us, okay, so since this isn't covered, what should I do? And we're telling them, go ahead and file the claim because there's different states like New Jersey and Ohio that have introduced legislation to kind of force the insurance companies to maybe cover some of these business interruption claims, even though it is specifically excluded. So we will see where that goes. Not really sure how far that's going to be able to go just because of the impact that it will have on the industry, but we are advising them to go ahead and file the claim.
Sure, we don't know what's going to happen. All right, Kristin Swanson with Swanson Insurance, thanks so much for this conversation.
Thank you, Sheba.
Very informative for business owners. Thank you very much, Sheba.